Start by removing the fenders, footpads and bumpers. Next, remove the rail that has the wiring harness in it. This is the side with charge port. Now unscrew controller and battery box. Unplug wiring harness, hall sensor cable and motor cable. Start unscrewing controller and battery box lids. Now remove Floatwheel BMS by disconnecting in the order shown. Unplug large white plug first, middle XT60, far end XT60, and small white plug. Take out 20s2p battery and connect extension wires. Remove wiring harness from battery box. Route new wiring harness into battery box. Disconnect charge port plug and lead plug going into molex. Then cut large red and black power cables that go from molex to the controller. Cut them close to the molex. Now unscrew and pry off the molex connector. Cut wire casing to prepare for soldering XT60 to controller power wires. The large red and black wire. Add heat shrink tubing to large red and black wires. Double check if you need a male or female XT60. Solder large controller power wires to XT60. Red wire to positive and black wire to negative. Now onto the charge port. You can cut red and black wire. Move yellow wire aside, it will not be used. Now use a multimeter and check your 84-volt charger positive and negative socket. You need to triple check and ensure it aligns with how you rewire your charge port. Clean off remaining solder from charge port pins. Now attach XT30 plug to charge port. I used a plug that came with leads already attached. Make sure your polarity is correct. From charger to charge port to wiring harness and to battery. Messing this up can be very dangerous, and at very least it can destroy your BMS and battery. Now you can remove the LED wires. This is the yellow, black and red wires with plugs on each end. It was attached to one end of the molex and into the controller socket labeled LED. You need to remove one of the Floatwheel LED plugs and use it to replace the small LED plug on the wiring harness. Remove these plugs by carefully prying up the plastic tabs and pulling the wires out one at a time. Put the plug and wires in the same orientation as the wiring harness, only the plug size is to be changed. The LED wires on the wiring harness are smaller than the Floatwheel LED wires. I removed the metal tabs on the larger wires and inserted the smaller wires into them. I then clamped them down and inserted them back into the larger Floatwheel plug. This is only for the controller side. On the battery box side, you need to take the LED plug off the original wiring harness. It has 4 wires and you will be using the plug for the 3 wires on the new wiring harness. Here a plug in the rear LED, but I actually had the wires in the wrong locations. Later, in the video I show pictures of the correct orientation. Jump ahead to 16 minutes and 36 seconds to check. Now screw in the Nolex and insert the wiring harness. If you haven't already done it, make sure to shrink the heat shrink tubes on XT30 and XT60. Now plug the BMS into the battery extension wires. Then plug in the XT30 extension wires to the battery and BMS battery port. Install battery in the battery box and position your wires. First plug in XT30 from wiring harness to BMS charge port. Loosen wiring harness and slowly pull the slack out of XT60 power wires. Now plug XT60 into battery. Organize wires and BMS in battery box. Now go to the controller box and plug in the wiring harness XT30 to the XT30 you soldered to the charge port. And lastly, plug in the power XT60. Turn on board. My rear LEDs did not turn on. If this happens, then turn off the board and retry the LED wire order. Here is the battery box rear LED order. Red, empty, green, black. Here is the controller side LED order, red, green, black. Now organize wires and put everything back together. Make sure you do not pinch any wires. And remember, you need to go in VESC and change your settings before riding your board.